First up, I want to share the App Store Connect CLI, or command line interface, by RocketSim. And essentially what this is anything you can do in App Store Connect using the App Store Connect API, you can now do in the terminal or a command line interface. Now, you may not be a CLI person. I'm not really a CLI person, so I'm like, what's the big deal? Well, I'll tell you why. Well, aside from all the things you can do, right? You can automate everything with App Store Connect, covering the full App Store Connect API. That's test flight distribution, App Store submission, screenshots, localization of your metadata. Cool, you can type these command line commands and do all that. Now, I'm not dismissing that. I know a lot of people love the command line. That's just not for me, and it may not be for you. But why I'm excited about this and want to share it is because now you have agent skills where now Codex, Claude Code can do all this stuff for you via the App Store Connect CLI. And there's a whole number of them. You can build and archive your projects. There's a whole end-to-end release flow. Submit your builds to test flight. There's metadata localization. You know, if your app has 6 different languages, localizing that metadata for every single language on every single release, right? What's new in this version, you got to do for every language. And what I was doing is I was sending it to ChatGPT, hey, translate this, and then I was copying and pasting into each individual location. And even though ChatGPT was doing the translation for me, that was still very tedious and time consuming. Well, now the agent can just localize all that metadata for you. And then another huge one that was time consuming, PPP pricing, or purchasing power parity pricing. This is where you change your app's pricing based on location. For example, the price in the United States may be more expensive than the price in a country where their currency isn't doing as well. And if you did this in App Store Connect, you'd have to go into every single country, change the price for every single country. It's rough. But again, now the agents can just do all that for you in the click of a button. And it's been fun watching RocketSim build this in public. If you follow him, you know he tweets about it a lot. Sorry, RocketSim, but you do tweet about it a lot. But it's been cool to watch it happen. And I haven't actually tried this yet, full disclosure, because I was waiting for it to mature a little bit, because he started tweeting about this like from the beginning. But it's now finally to a place, and this is also why I want to share, where it's like, all right, now it's time to dive in, give my agent some App Store Connect superpower, and give this a shot. And if you're curious, you can check out the GitHub repo. As you can see, it has 3.3K stars. It's taken off. It says over 10,000 downloads, I believe. But yeah, you can dive in to the repo, see what the code is doing. It is open source. And then of course, there's README with, troubleshooting, getting started, support, references, all kinds of stuff there. So check out the App Store Connect CLI. Let me know what you think about it. Today's episode of Swift News is sponsored by WinWinKit. And this allows you to create an affiliate program for your app. So whether you're working with influencers or a newsletter to market your app, or your app has a large community of users, now when they refer someone new to your app using the offer code and they purchase your app, they can receive a commission. And using affiliates is a classic growth and marketing channel that you can now explore with your app. And you can customize that commission like per affiliate that they receive, whether you want it to be 25%, 30%. And you can customize the duration. Do they only get commission on the first renewal? Like say it's a monthly app. They only get it on the first month. Or you could let them have it for the first 6 months to like really entice them. The point is you can customize the commission percentage and the duration however you like. Now, of course, WinWinKit can be implemented via an SDK, but a really nice bonus here is that there's a no-code option. So if you're a larger app that has a marketing team, or even if you're smaller and you just have someone helping you out on a growth side and they're not technical, they don't have to mess with the SDK or any code at all. They can handle this affiliate program all on their own. Because it integrates with App Store Connect using an API key, and all you need is the sales and marketing's permissions. And now your sales or marketing team can create affiliate codes right in the WinWinKit dashboard, and everything happens in the background, no code necessary. And as you can see, you can track all your affiliates, see how they're doing, see what kind of revenue they're generating, see how much you've paid them out. You can group them. You can see influencers, community, media. So you can really track how this affiliate program is doing in your app. So check out WinWinKit if you think an affiliate program will work for your app. The link is in the description. Now let's talk about even more skills that you can give your AI agents to help you build the best iOS apps. And Paul Hudson has released a few different skills. As you can see, there's the SwiftUI agent skills. This helps you write really good SwiftUI. We're going to dig into this in a second, but I want to show that he's also built one for Swift Concurrency. There's a lot of gotchas with Swift Concurrency, especially when the AI agent is writing it. So this will help steer the agent. Swift Data, same case, and there's Swift Testing. And then Paul's got a whole repo of all kinds of Swift agent skills that you can have. And of course, in typical Paul fashion, he shows you how to use it too via an article. So let's dive into the SwiftUI skill just to give you an example of what kind of stuff this can do. And the reason this is important, because if you've used any AI agents trying to write SwiftUI, the LLM's like training data has a certain cutoff date. Maybe that was 6 months ago, maybe it was a year ago, right? That's always a moving target, obviously. But SwiftUI is constantly changing. And all the stuff the LLM was trained on could have been older SwiftUI blog posts, older SwiftUI videos. So what ends up happening is you get some deprecated stuff in your SwiftUI or just SwiftUI has changed a lot to its old SwiftUI. Well, that's what Paul's agent skill does, is basically course corrects the LLM to write the most recent best practice SwiftUI. So let's click into SwiftUI Pro just to show you an example of that here. So we'll go to references, and then this is just the API one. So again, just some examples, right? Always use foreground style instead of foreground color. Foreground color was deprecated, I believe iOS 15, could be wrong on that, but a couple years ago. But sometimes you'll have the LLM still using these old modifiers. Same thing with clipshape.rect rather than corner radius. And you can see a whole ton of examples of Paul's skill steering the LLM to the most modern, best practice SwiftUI. Here's another example. This concatenated text, where you add the plus in between two text views, that is now deprecated. So when you use this skill, it's going to use the more proper, modern way to not do that anymore. So again, the whole point of these skills, and that was just SwiftUI, he's got one of Swift Concurrency, Swift Data, is to correct the LLM, basically give the LLM a PhD in modern Swift, Swift Concurrency, SwiftUI to help you write better code, or help you review better code that the AI writes. Save you time either way. And it's not just Paul, Thomas Ricard, who has recently been hired at OpenAI on the Codex team, so congrats to him. He also has some cool skills to use. There's a whole SwiftUI liquid glass skill, give you the best practices converting your app to liquid glass. SwiftUI performance audit. You may be aware, you may not be aware. You can write SwiftUI in a way that's not very performant. You get hitchy scrolling, and there is a way to write very performant SwiftUI code, and that's what this agent will do. It will go through and audit that for you. So yeah, if you're using Claude Code or Codex to help you build your apps and it's writing SwiftUI, Swift Concurrency, all that stuff, these skills are just a must. All right, enough of the AI agent stuff for now. It's hard not to talk about. Like, our whole job is changing, the whole way we do things is changing. So I know you may be getting sick of hearing about AI agents and skills and all this stuff. So we'll get back to some regular old Swift stuff. But here's Swift Concurrency. Let's say you don't want to rely on AI just writing all the code and you actually want to know your shit, which I highly recommend you do anyway, because yeah, you don't want to just 100% blindly rely on the AI. Quick little side tangent though, because I often think about how difficult it would be to learn right now, because it is very tempting just to let the AI do it. Like, I and many others are very fortunate to have learned the hard way, so to speak, over the past decade. So you have that base knowledge to help you use the AI. But I do try to put myself in the newbie's position. It's like, man, it'd be really hard to try to learn all this stuff when the ease of AI is right there. But I do recommend you do learn it, and that's where this post comes in. Swift Concurrency from zero to hero, a reading list. So what Alex has done here is basically compiled a short little roadmap. Now there's tons of other resources out there. He doesn't claim for this to be a comprehensive list, but if you're getting started with Swift Concurrency, you're like, I really need to dive into that. Or even if you've learned it, and back to those AI agents, I feel like my skills have atrophied because I have been relying on the AI agents. I haven't been having to bang my head against the wall, learn things, and do it myself. So whether you're a newbie or you feel like your skills have atrophied, which I put myself in that bucket, this is a great roadmap to revisit, to just drill the fundamentals, review the basics. But level 0, effing approachable Swift Concurrency. It's an easy and fun read, lots of playful analogies. It's a great introduction to the topic if you've never even dealt with or seen Swift Concurrency. And, level 1, there's a step-by-step series by Matt Massacott. This was pivotal in how I learned Swift Concurrency initially, so I highly recommend Matt's content, but it takes you into there. And then, level 2, level 3, once you get into the higher levels, you're actually reading the Swift evolution proposals. That really gets into the weeds. And Alex brings up a good point, is that just knowing what and how isn't enough. You also need to understand why behind the currency features even exist. That really helps you understand why does this even need to be sendable? What's the whole idea behind something being sendable? Why is that a big deal? And that really helps you understand how Swift Concurrency works. So anyway, a great little roadmap. I thought this was nice because Swift Concurrency is a very daunting topic. So a nice roadmap to start at level 0 up to more advanced is a great tool to have. Next up, we got a nice little addition to foundation models in iOS 26.4, and that is tracking token usage in foundation models. So if you're not aware, foundation models is the on-device LLM that Apple uses. However, the on-device model has a context window of 4,096 tokens, which is insanely tiny. That is so small. And like they say, so understanding how many tokens your instructions, prompts, and tools consume, that's essential for building reliable features. Because it is so small, you have to be very intelligent, very efficient, and very careful with how you use those tokens. Those tokens are very precious because there's so many of them. And basically, we got a context size property on the language model. You see here, model.contextSize. And it'll print out 496. But it's not just on the whole model. Oh, real quick, it is back deployed before 26.4, so you can use it on previous versions of the OS. But you can do this per element in what you're sending up to the model. So your instructions, if you don't know, you give your model instructions. You're a helpful assistant that generates haikus. In my portfolio course, I say you are a motivational fitness instructor. I basically give it like 2 sentences of instructions telling it what the model is so it knows how to act. But even the instructions, that uses tokens. See, in that case, it uses 16. If you're using tool calling, maybe you're digging into the user's calendar to pull out their most recent events. Or maybe you're making a network call out to a weather API to get the recent weather to feed into your response. Well, that tool call generates tokens. And you can see, use the model.token usage for instructions and tools, and then it'll print out the token usage for that. So the tool calling was 79. So you can see these tokens start adding up. And then your prompt, you can see how much tokens you're using for the prompt. In this case, it's 14. But it's just a reminder that don't just ramble. I know when you're typing into ChatGPT or Claude, you're probably just typing away, having no consideration for how big your prompt actually is. So again, when you can actually print out token count while you're building your app using foundation models, just knowing this is very key because you want to keep this as minimal as possible while still being effective. And before, there wasn't really an easy way to see your token usage, but now in iOS 26.4, we can really break down each element of what we're sending up to the model to break down the token usage to make sure we're being efficient and intelligent with how we're using that. Because again, that context window is tiny. I'm hoping they increase that over time. I assume they will, but we'll see. And finally, we have the Indie Apps Dev newsletter, and Antoine did a guest post on here about AI adoption as an indie developer. And there's one thing I really want to focus on with the context switching here, but I'll give you a quick overview about what he talks about, reinventing ourselves, kind of like I mentioned before, like our entire job is changing. Like in the past year, what we do is completely change day to day. So he talks about that. Again, this is the context switching to building multiple apps at the same time. I want to come back to that. I'm going to give you a quick overview first. He gives guides to becoming better at agentic coding. He gives his workflow, talks about always using plan mode, which I agree because I just don't send out a prompt and hope it one-shots it. Especially if it's a larger one, I like to do plan mode because at least Codex, that's what I use. Usually when I have it come up with a plan, and I always use extra high, I have the max plan, whatever, it'll come back with 4 or 5 questions about that plan, clarifying how it should implement it or clarifying how it should handle an edge case. And a lot of times, either I didn't even think of the edge case, but even if I did think of the edge case, it recommends like potential solutions. I didn't think of one of the potential solutions and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a really good solution. So I highly recommend plan mode as well. I know some people don't do that. He says write test, update your agents.md file, use skills like we talked about. So he goes through his workflow. But again, the whole reason I wanted to share this because I wanted to talk to you about context switching, because this is what I have really struggled with in this whole era of agentic coding, because it is extremely enticing, extremely tempting to just be like, oh my gosh, I can work on 4 or 5 projects at a time. Let me send this agent out to app number 1. All right, cool. While you're doing that, this agent goes to app number 2. Cool. While you're doing that, you go to app number 3, etc. It's very tempting to think that you can just do so much work now with all these agents. But what I've found is that context switching between projects and what you're working on is very difficult and like fries my brain, to be honest. And what happens is like, I'll send it out on project 1, cool, while it's doing its thing, send it out on project 2, send it out on project 3. And then by the time 1 and 2 come back, now I'm dealing with 1, and then now I'm dealing with 2's response. And then by the time I actually get to project 3, I like forgot where I was and it's like confusing. Now, of course, this matters what you're doing. If you're doing something super simple and mundane, boilerplate, like not a big deal. But trying to do like big things on multiple projects, I found doesn't work for me. And again, the reason I wanted to share this was I want to hear how you're handling this context switching, because what I've done is I've just started focusing on 1 project at a time. And if I do need to work on 2 projects in a day, I'll be like, all right, in the morning, I'm working on project 1. In the afternoon, I'm working on project 2. Because I've just found context switching on larger features that I have to like think about, especially when you're considering UI. Anything that requires creativity, right? The UI requires creativity. The UX requires creativity, like making sure the actual flow and the user experience is good. So yeah, how are you handling the context switching if you're working on 3 or 4 projects at a time? Do you have any strategies? I would love to hear it. I'm sure others would love to hear it in the comments, but that's the biggest thing I've been struggling with in this whole era of agentic coding. That wraps it up for this episode of Swift News. See you in the next one.